Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel will be Jamie Sweet Douglas with her talk titled Men's Mental Health Matters. Jamie has been a therapist at Wabash since the fall of 2011. She is a licensed marriage and family mental health and clinical addictions therapist. She became the director of the counseling center in the fall of 2019. Jamie is a longtime fan of Wabash and its men. She got engaged to her now husband, Dr. Scott Douglas, during a Wabash homecoming game in 1987. She got a ring and a Wabash sweatshirt. Today, she still has all three: ring, sweatshirt, and her husband of almost 36 years. Jamie and her husband have two adult children, Gordon and Cameron, and a wild Aussie doodle named Hamish. When she is not counseling Wabash men, Jamie enjoys hiking, reading, gardening, practicing and teaching yoga, and sailing. She will retire at the end of this academic year and plans to sail off into the sunset with her hubby and their dog, but she will forever be a fan of Wabash. Let's give a warm welcome to Jamie.
Good morning, Wabash. Good morning. Thank you to the Sphinx Club for inviting me to speak today. When Ian asked me last week if I'd be willing to do a chapel talk, a wave of panic washed over me, I have to admit. I thought, how on earth can I prepare a talk in 1 week? I'm way out of my comfort zone. This stage is really high, you know? And then I took a breath, and I thought, almost every day, I encourage a student to step out of his comfort zone and face his fears. Here's an opportunity to practice what I preach. As my introduction said, I've been a fan of Wabash and its men for a very long time, longer than most of you have been alive. When Dr. Douglas and I began dating, he was living with three of his fraternity brothers in Indianapolis: Peter Wright, class of 1981. Yep, David Hayhurst, class of 83, and Tom Jeffers, class of 84. So early in my relationship with Scott, David Hayhurst pulled me aside and he said he didn't really think that he could give me permission to continue to date Scott until I learned the Wabash fight song. True story, yep. Thankfully, David took mercy on me and only required me to learn the first verse and the chorus. I don't think I had any idea how many verses there were at the time. But I'm proud to say that today, I don't know the fight song of any of my alma maters, but I know the song of the college that has become, to me, the most important to me. When Mike Rader's, Dean Redding's predecessor, approached me in 2011 and asked me if I would be interested in doing some counseling at Wabash, I thought, you know, how interesting or diverse could the mental health needs of young men between 18 and 22-ish be? I'll agree to do some counseling, but I'm going to keep my day job in my private practice for diversity and professional challenge. Well, I was about to get a real education in the reality of men's mental health. So, why does men's mental health matter? First, it's important to understand the mental health of persons between the ages of 18 and 25, that age group. These are the years where if a person's going to develop a diagnosable mental health diagnosis in their lifetime, they are likely to show first signs of this in late teen or young adult years. First episodes of depression, anxiety, mania, suicidal thinking, psychosis, substance use disorders. They can reveal themselves during this portion of a person's development. And I often say very lovingly that young adults are still doughy in the middle. You're doughy in the frontal lobe. Your brains are still developing. The portion of the brain responsible for higher functioning and reason is still developing well into a person's mid-20s and later. This makes it even more critical to monitor the mental health of young adults. Men's mental health matters. The 2023, get ready for this long title, American College Health Association National College Health Assessment indicates that while there's no real difference in the number of male and female college students who report mental health issues, females are 20% more likely to seek treatment than are males. Young adult men are also at a higher risk for having suicidal thinking, suicidal ideation. In this same survey, 3.1% of male undergraduate respondents indicated that they had attempted, not just considered, suicide in the past 12 months. For women, it was 2.3%. Men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than are women. They attempt at a higher rate in your age group and die by suicide at a higher rate. Members of the LGBTQ+ community, specifically transgendered persons, reported an even higher risk, a higher risk than any other age group. 5.6 of respondents reported suicide attempts over the previous 12-month period. These numbers are too high. They're too high. Overall, men of all ages made up about 80% of the nation's more than 50,000 suicides in 2023. Encouraging help seeking and addressing suicidal risk is another reason that men's mental health matters. Mental health issues like depression can look different in men than they do in women. Depression doesn't always look like sadness. For example, it could present itself as agitation or anger, and therefore less likely to be recognized for what it is. And that may even further delay someone getting treatment, appropriate treatment. Often men do not connect the physical symptoms they're having, headaches, gastrointestinal issues, chest pain, muscle tension, as being related to a mental health issue. We also know that men who have received a mental health diagnosis are less likely to seek or to participate in treatment. Even though we've made progress, and I think Wabash has made tremendous progress with reducing the stigma of help seeking, more work needs to be done. It's a sign of strength, not weakness, to manage your mental health. Men's mental health matters because we still have work to do to reduce the stigma of seeking treatment for mental health challenges. Substance use disorders. Young adults are at risk for abusing substances and could develop a long-term substance use disorder. People sometimes try to manage mental health symptoms with substance use. I need something to relax me, something to help me sleep. I hear this one a lot, something to reduce my social anxiety. Substance use can mask deeper mental health issues and present problems of its own. Wabash men are at an even higher risk for developing a substance use disorder or abusing substances. Research indicates that colleges that are single gender have a high percentage of student athletes and an active Greek life, kind of sounds like Wabash, doesn't it, are at a higher risk for abusing substances. And we know from the Indiana College's Substance Use Survey, ICSIS, that Wabash men do use substances, particularly alcohol and marijuana, at a higher rate than male students at other Indiana colleges. Understanding that we are at higher risk and that we use at a higher rate is informational, not judgmental. This knowledge can help us better address substance use and abuse on our campus. We cannot fix a problem if we don't know it exists. I suspect that you already know which of your peers might be struggling with a substance use disorder. You might be struggling. If so, please encourage them or consider yourself to come and seek treatment and support. I'm a clinical addictions counselor. Carrie Francis, one of our other therapists, is as well. We see this all the time. It's a safe place to talk about substance use. Substance use disorders are mental health disorders. That's why addressing and supporting men's mental health matters. The transition from teenager to young adult can be fraught with difficulties and stressors. Young adults are still learning who they are and how to navigate adulthood. My youngest son, Cameron, who's now 26, had a t-shirt when he was in high school that said, "Don't grow up, it's a trap." You know, right? And it's funny. It was kind of a joke, but there's a real fear and anxiety about the future rested in that statement. I know that many young people can identify. I can identify, and I am very far from being a young adult. Navigating adulthood can be both exciting and full of possibilities and scary and overwhelming. I want to reassure you that it is normal to experience some degree of concern about your purpose and your future as you journey through your career here at Wabash. It's so important. I'm going to say it again. It is normal to feel unsure of who you are and where your life is headed at times. The mistake that some young men can make is believing that they are the only ones who are struggling, and that it is somehow a weakness or even a character flaw that they feel shaky and unsure of themselves. I've spoken to many young men over my years at Wabash who share with me that they feel a strong pressure to achieve. You know, just last night in a QPR training, we talked about, that this is a competitive place, and this is really hard. I said it's kind of like a pressure cooker sometimes. Some feel the need to be strong and successful so they can be good providers for their future families. Many feel an internal or an external pressure and need to make their parents proud or to be good role models for their siblings. Some worry that they need to achieve at Wabash and beyond so they don't waste the resources that have been invested into their education. And sometimes those feelings can become overwhelming and discouraging. Acknowledging and normalizing life transitions is another reason that men's mental health matters. I've observed Wabash increasingly embrace the reality that mental health is physical health, and it's important to keep Wabash men healthy so that you can achieve your academic and your personal goals. While I believe that Wabash has always cared about the wellness of its students, there's been increased evidence of that over the past 5 years or so. I was appointed director of counseling late in the fall of 2019. It was the first time, to my knowledge, in the history of the college that there had been a full-time position in the counseling center. Since then, we have more than doubled the number of hours dedicated to the treatment of mental health issues. We have moved from the basement of this very building — I used to hear y'all clomp around all the time, so I was there for 10 years, to the Ginny Hayes house for a couple of years, and now we're settled in the Kendall house, the brick house with the white picket fence. I think that's appropriate. That's nestled right between the Allen Center and the tennis courts. This physical location and the investment by the college and by the Wabash Women's Collective have made this space a welcoming place for young men. It indicates that men's mental health matters and should be prioritized. It's a space solely reserved for therapy and wellness. We have a full-time wellness coordinator — she's sitting right back there — who oversees the 8 dimensions of wellness. She trains and supervises peer health educators who work within the student population to educate and respond to the needs of the student body. We have more staff in the health center. The WDPD hosts mental health dialogues with first-year students. We have a more robust and organized student-led mental health concerns committee, and living units are more likely to appoint chairpersons to address the mental health needs of their peers. We offer QPR suicide gatekeeper training. So I'm going to pause here and just say, stand up if you were with me last night. As a matter of fact, just last night, the current Rhines became certified QPR suicide prevention gatekeepers. Congratulations, gentlemen, and thank you for your willingness to take the training. And thanks to Lewis and Brett for organizing. Yeah. I hope you're not sorry. You're not sorry you took it. We also offer the JED Foundations — You Can Help a Friend and You Can Help a Student — trainings Classes to support the goal of smoking cessation. We've been awarded a large grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which I call SAMHSA, and Dean Redding calls SAMHSA, potato, potato. Doesn't matter, we got the money. Right? And received funds from alumni who care about the mental health of Wabash men. There's an EQ unit designated to mental health and wellness, and I'm glad I see Professor Schmitzer-Torbert back there because he facilitates weekly lunchtime meditation and offers training, and I highly recommend it, in mindfulness-based stress reduction. And the list goes on. However, the most powerful example, and I'll get emotional here, in the culture around men seeking support for their mental health and wellness comes from the student body. You are the driving force for cultural change. You have made it okay to not be okay, and okay to be vulnerable with one another when you're struggling. You have begun to talk more openly about your worries and your challenges, and that gives permission for others to do the same. One of the most powerful ways that you can and do support one another is by being willing to listen. Seems like a small thing, right? It's the most important thing. It can immediately lower someone's level. If you take the time to listen to a friend who's suffering, it matters. It can immediately lower their level of distress, and it can even save a life. You may have saved the life of a brother by offering space for them to feel safe and to be heard. Men's mental health matters, and Wabash knows it. The reason I want you to understand that mental health is physical health is because so much of what we see in the health and counseling centers are interrelated. If a student is struggling to manage his stress or having trouble with depression or substance use, the student is more likely to be struggling to take care of his foundational needs. And you know what I'm going to say here? Sleep, my big old soapbox issue, proper nutrition, physical activity, social connection. Our physical and emotional selves are so interwoven that it can sometimes be difficult to sort out what is physical and what's psychological, because they're really both the same thing, and how they each influence the other. If we prioritize sleep, proper nutrition, physical activity, and social connection, and make them the foundations of our overall health, we can better address the daily stressors, because there are daily stressors in our lives. We can more easily identify the roots of what's bothering us, and we can develop skills to regulate our emotions, communicate more effectively, and become more resilient beings. Mental health is physical health, and men's mental health matters. I've considered it an honor, it really has been, to work with Wabash students over the past 13 years. You have so much to offer this world. I really believe it. It's rewarding to work with motivated young men, even though sometimes you come to me because you're not motivated. It's a temporary state, right, Laura? Yeah. You're on your way to becoming men who will positively impact their family, their friends, their workplaces, their communities, and beyond. So, why does men's mental health matter at Wabash? Because first episodes of depression, anxiety, and other mental health challenges often emerge in your age group. Because depression and mental health challenges don't always manifest themselves in young men the same way they do in young women. Because young men are historically less likely to seek treatment due to the stigmas and messages that would have them believe that it's a sign of weakness to seek support. Because young men are at greater risk for dying by suicide than young women. Because substance use and abuse can mask other issues and become its own problem. Because young men put tremendous pressure on themselves to achieve. I believe in each one of you. And I believe that Wabash always prioritizes the health of its young men because, and I want you to say it with me, men's mental health matters. Thank you.